Hey mama, every journey into motherhood is different and it is marked by joys and accomplishments as well as challenges and hardships. In today's podcast, we get to hear Eloise's journey into motherhood after 15 years of infertility and how she found hope in the midst of some dark parts of her journey and her birth story. If you are needing encouragement in your pregnancy journey or in preparation for your birth experience and learning to be an advocate for yourself or trying to figure out how to be that encouragement to a woman struggling with infertility, Eloise's story is going to give you so much encouragement and empowerment as you walk your own journey. Every mama deserves to be informed through her pregnancy and birth, which is why I'm creating an online course that's going to be released so soon for mamas who are trying to have a happier, healthier, and easier birth. If you go to the Built to Birth website, which is linked down below in the description, and subscribe to the weekly email, you will stay up to date on all things Built to Birth, including when that course is released. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Built to Birth podcast, rate it, and then write a review so that whatever platform you're listening to your podcasts on knows to share this with more mamas who need to hear these uplifting stories. So without further ado, let's hear Eloise's birth story. Hi, Eloise. It's good to see you.
You too. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm so thankful that you're willing to chat with us. I'm so excited to hear your birth story. How's your little one?
He's good. He had his 2-week pediatrician appointment this morning, and he's doing really good. He had lost over the 10% of his weight. Really really quickly over like 4 days. But now he's like skyrocketing up to little chunk monster. So we're really happy. So, but that's because he's like on demand feeding, and so he's doing good.
Which is demanding for you, but he loves that.
Yeah, it is demanding, and so we're trying to figure out like how to have him stop using me as a pacifier and actually feed. And so we're just trying to introduce a pacifier to him today, and he's not really having it. So
he's like, I know the difference.
Yeah, exactly. So no, but it's going good. You know, we're not getting a ton of sleep, but it's first time parenting, I guess. Nothing's off limits. Everything's new.
Yeah, I know. It's true. It's all just a learning curve, and you just keep learning something new every day, and it's exhausting to learn that much in such a short amount of time, but then it just gets better every single day. I promise you're going to look back and you're going to be like, how did I manage that?
Yeah.
Like, it makes you new parents are superheroes. I don't know how you guys do it, but you guys are amazing.
Well, you've done it too, so I
know. And I look back on myself, I'm like, I don't know how I did it.
Well, I think that about my labor, because like a couple days before my labor, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to go through with this. And then during my labor, I was just like, can I back out? What can we do? Like, how do I make this over and end right away? Like, what's the fastest way to make everything stop? And now I'm kind of like, oh, I could do that again. It wasn't that bad.
Isn't that funny how like it just changes? And thank goodness for that. Otherwise, humans would probably be extinct, right?
Exactly. I keep telling myself, women go back and do this over and over again. So, there's that amnesia. Apparently.
Exactly. Yep. It's a real thing. I love it. Well, before we hop into your birth story, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and your family and then your journey to pregnancy, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, I don't know exactly how much you want to know, but my husband and I have been married since 2014. And I was, to be perfectly honest, I was previously married for a really long time, and the infertility struggle was a huge rift between the two of us, and that contributed a lot to a relationship ending, which was really hard and really sad. It wasn't just one thing, of course, but infertility and the desire for children can be if you're not both on board, it can be a real wedge. And so, and it was. And so luckily when, I met my current husband, Tim, we were really upfront together, I think even on our first date, about my personal struggles. And my desires. And he, we kind of said, if we last, if we get past a first, second, third date, whatever, then, we'll do what it takes to build a family. And whether that happened through natural or fertility treatments or foster care or adoption, we were going to grow a family at some point. And but we committed to each other that we would always keep each other first, and we wouldn't let that really hard journey get the better of us, because we just didn't want that to be a wedge between us as far as our relationship. So, and we've definitely kept that at the core of our relationship. So, because infertility is definitely a taxing journey. I've been dealing with infertility since I was pretty much a sophomore in high school. I had basically what my infertility stemmed from was I had a pelvic infection due to using tampons for too long. So that toxic shock syndrome that's on the back of every tampon box. Basically, if I had let things go on a little further, that's where I would have ended up. But ended up in the hospital and had exploratory surgery and, figured out what it was. But then, of course, every time you have surgery on your abdomen, it kind of results in scar tissue, and you increase your risk for endometriosis. And so I struggled with endometriosis from a teen on until, just recently. And so I tried everything under the sun from like a natural hippie kind of perspective, because I like to be as natural as possible. And while a lot of those things I think were comforting to know that I was trying to take control over something and trying to do something and move forward. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a delivery here at our house just now. Those were comforting. They just didn't actually work for me. And the reason would be that, endometriosis can be a little bigger than what natural methods can fix. I also found that I ended up having a bicornate uterus. So that's basically where you have additional growth, and those can happen in different ways. And so we discovered all of that through infertility treatments. And long story short, I've had, I think, 4 laparoscopies done to treat things. I had half of one of my tubes removed, and then I finally had the rest of it removed later. And then we finally we're here in Austin, Texas, and we got in with a really, really wonderful fertility clinic. It's called the Texas Fertility Center. And they're just so amazing and supportive, and did all the right things. And we went through a first round of egg retrieval, and we ended up with 2 embryos, and that were healthy and normal, and that was it. We didn't have much else. And so, and we did 2 transfers, and they did not work, which was really hard. And then we did another retrieval and ended up with 5 embryos. And the first transfer out of that, we did that after discovering that I had the bicornate uterus, which we then had to, we went in and removed the additional, I guess it's just additional tissue that's in your uterus that's just dividing your uterus. And so it prevents implantation, which kind of meant that over the years I'd been experiencing very early term losses, probably about 6 or 7. And they all kind of happened because, I would think maybe I'm pregnant, but then I'd lose the pregnancy because they just can't get nourishment if they're implanting in that type of a uterus. So, and then once we had that, did that procedure, we did a transfer, and here we are, 43 weeks later with our little guy, Barrett, which has been great. And, along the way, we committed to, if we were going to do the fertility treatments, we paused a long time to think about whether or not to do that, whether or not that's how we wanted to spend our time, spend our money, because it's not cheap. It's not easy. It takes a huge toll on a lot of different things in your life, your time. And so we finally decided, when we decided to commit to it, we decided to save up for it. And that was a big part of being able to go into that process confidently. And, thanks to my husband, we were able to do that, and his planning, and he's a great saver. So, so, that was how we were able to do that with minimal stress, being able to say, we're going to do 2 shots at this, and that's it. And that's what it took, amazingly enough. And, we had the cash to do it, and we were just committed to creating that plan and sticking to it.
So what kind of helped you commit to doing IVF, getting on board? What kind of helped you guys say, let's give this a shot?
I think being really well researched. I mean, my husband is very analytical, so he was able to look at all the data and look at our ages. We went through the preliminary testing, and, that seemed very easy to kind of low-hanging fruit to go through the testing. Insurance covered a lot of the upfront testing, which was really great. Not everybody has that luxury, and, we were very fortunate. So, but, being able to get all of our results and see from there how we could go forward and what our outcome could be was helpful. And then just knowing people who had actually come through the same fertility clinic. And it was just one of those, divine kind of experiences where, as we were thinking about going through the fertility treatments, we suddenly started meeting people randomly, new friends, people at the grocery store. The lady who gave me my flu shot told me that her twin children had been conceived by the same doctor that I was seeing at the fertility clinic 20 years ago. So it was kind of, it was just, a small town, I guess, but just learning from other people and hearing their experiences kind of helped us be, ready and willing to commit to it and just have the confidence to go forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And I think, fertility or infertility is a bigger challenge that women and partners are going through than we know of. I feel like it's hush hush, let's not talk about it so much until you're experiencing it, and then you feel like it can feel very isolating. Was that your experience? Did it feel
100%? 100%. I definitely had. Having dealt with it for so long and having it be literally be part of an ending of a previous relationship was, really taxing and hard. And as you start, getting older, I turned 41 2 hours before my son was born. So his birthday is the day after mine. And so, as we started our infertility journey, I was at the end of being 39. And so to be dealing with this for so long, and then to be coming into it at such a little older, it's like you've been carrying this weight forever. And seeing all of your friends, everybody ending or finishing up their families, now, and sending their kids off to, starting high school and whatnot. It was really hard. I definitely had my dark days. And, the only way I got through it was I finally, during one of my really, really low points after we lost a baby at about, I think we were 8 weeks or 7 weeks, which was that was the furthest I'd ever been. And that was really hard. And, the emotional swing was just really rough. And I thought, this is our last chance, because I think I was 38 at that point. And, you're thinking your clock is ticking and everything's against you. And I found a support group, an infertility support group that's faith-based, called Sarah's Laughter, which just was huge. And I just found their online support through Facebook. And then I found that they had a local chapter here in Austin. And it took so much courage. Like I chickened out so many times going, because I just didn't want to go. I was too ashamed, because there was nobody to talk to, it seemed. And I just didn't want to I didn't know what to think by going to a support group. Like, you're admitting that you're a failure in some way, that your body is broken. And so that was just really hard. But finally, I just went one night, and it was like the most amazing experience to be there with women who have been fighting infertility, and not just infertility, but infant loss, because they do a lot of different types of support. And it was one of the most welcoming groups, and it completely, I always say it really genuinely did save my life, because I just don't know. I was in such a dark place at that point. But meeting these women who, some of them are still struggling with infertility. Some of them are still struggling with the loss of an infant from 25 years ago. And some of them are like me and have had their miracle babies. So, but it was just such an amazing support group that I'm still part of. And I don't see myself never being a part of them, because the women are just, they're so supportive and gracious to each other. And so, for anybody who is going through infertility, just finding any kind of support is just so important. And even if there's not like a local group, getting an online group is amazing, because we chat back and forth through, different chat apps. And it's just amazing that they're always there to, offer words of encouragement or let you vent. And so that was huge for me. And to then be able to return that to others once you kind of come out the other side. That's been very therapeutic, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's so empowering to hear as well, is that, you don't have to stay in that dark spot. Like, there are resources that can help pull you out of that. And community is such a big part of that, and finding women who are dealing with the same thing, or couples who are dealing with the same thing, and can offer a different perspective. And I think that's so powerful, because infant loss and infertility is it does feel so shameful. It does feel so like you want to keep it down and dark, and it feels isolating. And so when you find women who are struggling with the same thing, but can be encouraging, like the words that you could never say to yourself, but someone else is saying that and saying, like, you're going to get through this. Like, let's look for the light at the end of the tunnel, it can be so refreshing, and that, life-saving device that you just need to climb on and hold on to. And so I think that's so powerful, you sharing that with us, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, I don't think I ever could have. It was just one of those, people would come and say, "Oh, well, when are you having children?" And you would just be like, we're just still kind of, I don't know, we're still thinking about it. But all the while, when someone asks that question, you're dying inside. And now it's, I feel much more empowered. I feel more like an advocate for women who are going through that. And I've made so many amazing friends through that, I guess, vulnerability and honesty. And it's just been helpful for me to just be honest with myself, and just say, there is something about my body that's not quite working, and it may never work. Luckily, we were able to find a way to make it work. But, there were points where, even at my healthiest, when I was, finally on the other side of things and not in a dark place, I had to tell myself, this may not work, and I have to be okay with that. And that was really hard to tell myself. But going, through the support group helped me, say those words to myself at some point. And that was huge. That was like turning a huge corner for me.
Yeah. For moms or people who are listening to, your story, who are not dealing with infertility, what is something that they can do or say to women or couples who are dealing with that could be an encouragement, or something they could do that would show that they are supporting them through this season?
Gosh, that's so hard. I mean, because I've had so many people, even moms, who have, sort of struggled with infertility a little bit, or maybe it took them a little while longer to get pregnant, or, maybe they had secondary infertility with like second or third child. And, sometimes people say things that are just so hurtful and they don't mean it. But, if somebody has actually told you, that they are struggling, I think just hearing them out and knowing what they're saying, knowing what they're maybe feeling, and that there's a huge longing that sometimes words just cannot fix a longing, no matter how supportive you're trying to be, and just letting somebody vent and understanding that, I think maybe the biggest thing would be understanding that if someone's struggling with infertility, sometimes being around other moms or being around children or being at a grocery store and seeing a baby is just, it's like a knife to to your heart, and giving somebody the grace and space to feel that way, I think is really important, and continuing to love them, without, trying to lecture them or, it's always great to be sunny and positive and great, really positive words, but sometimes they just don't help, because you're just so much in your own grief. But, I think for myself, I had to really tell myself that when other people are trying to help me, I can't take it personally. And I have to understand that those people are trying to help me, that they don't understand how I'm feeling. And so I think my best advice is more so for the person who's struggling sometimes, is you just have to remember that other people are trying to help you, and that you only you're only in control of how you react and not how people are treating you sometimes. But, I think just giving, women who are struggling that space to feel how they feel, and to not judge them for maybe not wanting to come to a baby shower. I turned down a lot of baby showers over the years that I just couldn't be there, and, some of my friends understood and some of them didn't. And that's okay, because we all have a different story and we're all walking a different journey. But I think just giving those women the space to feel how they feel, and just being an ear to them is really important. You can't fix their problem.
And just meeting them where they're at, and letting them feel their feelings and grapple with their situation, and just being a listening ear, you would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you can try to offer advice, but telling somebody, well, you can always adopt, or you can always do this, or, those sometimes they're not very helpful, because that's not what somebody wants. They want that baby inside of them. And maybe they end up adopting. You never know. That's not where they are. And so words sometimes is just, it's salt in the wound sometimes. So sometimes listening and saying nothing is probably the best thing.
Well, thank you. And I think that's going to be helpful for moms who are dealing with infertility to, know or be reminded that most people have like the best intentions. It just comes across the wrong way. And then so helpful for other moms to know how to support their friends or family members or other moms, or women who are trying themselves and having, that challenge. So again, thank you so much for sharing that portion of your story and that journey that brought you up to your pregnancy. So when you found out you were pregnant, what were kind of your emotions and reactions that in that moment, as well as like the weeks and months surrounding that experience as well?
Yeah. Oh gosh. It's mixed for sure, because I'm a pretty emotional person. I'm very idealistic. And then there's my husband, who's super analytical. He's less emotional. And so, when we found, obviously when you do a transfer, a frozen embryo transfer, you go in, exactly what's going to happen. And then you get your phone call in 10 days, letting you know, you do your blood test in 10 days and letting you know whether or not you're pregnant. So, and in the meantime, you're just supposed to live this normal life. Don't take a urine test. Don't do anything. Don't try to find out if you're pregnant or not, because it'll give you a false positive or whatever it is. And so you're just trying to kind of live your life normal without getting stressed out, without getting your hopes up, especially after having 2 failed embryo transfers. It's like, and all the while I'm thinking I see, dollar signs just trickling out of our bank account, possibly and everything. And so you're just trying to kind of live life, and you just have to put that, for those 10 days, I just had to put this idea of being pregnant just like out of my mind, and just see that blood test appointment as, like picking up the dry cleaning or something. Just something I had to do on
so challenging
that day. And then of course you get you get that phone call, and the phone call for us, it always comes really late at night. Like it came, I think, at like 10:30, and we'd already gone through 2 of those where you picked up the phone and you know from the nurse's voice on the other end that it's not good news, just because of the way they asked for you. And this time it was different, and it was like I was already smiling when she was like, is Eloise there? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not how they've ever called me before. And I had the phone on speaker so that my husband could hear. And so we hung up, we found out we're pregnant, and, we set up the next appointment and kind of talk about what the next steps are. And then we hang up, and I look at my husband, and I'm like ready to cry. And I'm like, I can't believe it. And he's like, yeah, I'll believe it when he's here. And I was like, cause he's thinking about like all the statistics and the data that, we could still lose the baby at any point.
All the what ifs.
And, that's where, me being a, total polar opposite of him, being on like the idealistic side of things. And he's like analytical, seeing all the, like the true facts. Like we had to spend the next, 41 weeks meeting each other in the middle somehow.
Wow.
But no, it was very exciting. And, then of course you have to get to the 12-week mark, and then, we got to that mark and everything seemed great. We were happy, and we made our announcements. And I don't know that I mentioned this to you previously in our conversations, but, at 24 weeks, I went in, whenever you go in for your first, bio
like
scan.
Like the anatomy scan.
I think that was at 22 weeks.
Okay.
Everything was going great. My pregnancy was perfect. I loved being pregnant. I was happy. I didn't have a ton of morning sickness. Like being pregnant to me was just this amazing experience all the way up until the very end. I loved being pregnant. I mean, it's hard for sure. It's not easy, but I didn't have like all of these like, oh, I hate being pregnant. Like I can't wait to not be pregnant anymore. But at 22 weeks at the anatomy scan, we discovered that I had a short cervix and that I was already dilated to 2 centimeters.
Oh, wow.
And so we had to go in for an emergency cerclage at 22 weeks. And I was in the hospital for a whole week. And basically the doctor said, the perinatal specialist said, you need to be in the hospital for 2 days on antibiotics. And hopefully in 2 days, we can do the cerclage, because hopefully in 2 days you haven't delivered your baby.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
And it was kind of like, oh my gosh, well, what happens if I go into labor, or, I continue to dilate? And he said, you lose the baby, because at 22 weeks, we don't do any life-saving measures.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It was just like, oh my gosh, and, I'm trying so hard to like, just be upbeat and positive and just like, okay, now everything's going to be fine, because that's the idealistic part of me. Just like, we're just going to sweep all of that under the rug. We're going to just hang out here in the hospital. In the meantime, my husband's like, data mining and just freaking out, and looking at all the statistics. And so, that was really hard. And that happened over Christmas.
Oh man. Wow.
So that's how we spent our Christmas. So that, that was like the big scary part of our pregnancy. So up until then, though, it had been just really great. And, just felt like I was riding this total high of I'm finally getting what I want, and it's going well. And then all of a sudden it was going well, and, trying to navigate that process. And then of course, the cerclage was successful. And then they say, well, just so you know, pack a hospital bag, because you could be going into labor anytime between now and, term. And so it became this like every week was a new milestone, so we had 23 weeks. Okay. 23 weeks. Great. 24 weeks. Great. And it was like, I think at 28 weeks is when they will actually perform life-saving measures. So we had this like 6 weeks of like, we could still lose this baby, even though everything's fine, seemingly. And then fast forward, I go 6 days past my due date. So, it was just
so many twists and turns.
It has been a lot of twists and turns. My husband keeps telling me that anything that could go wrong has gone wrong, but we've managed to somehow come through it the other side, really positively. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but that was.
Oh, yeah, that definitely does. So, going through your pregnancy, with this idealistic perspective, how did you think about your birth experience at the end of these 9 months?
So, yeah, that's a great question because, when I went into my first OBGYN appointment with my OB, she's like, well, what are your goals for your birth? What are your goals for your pregnancy? And I thought, okay, this is great. My goals are, I want to have an unassisted, or medical, no intervention birth. Ideally, I wanted to have a home birth. That was something I really wanted, but because I was high risk and, advanced maternal age, as they love to call it, we decided to do a hospital birth. And we were going to have a doula who was actually a midwife and everything. Or someone who did like monitrice services so that we could labor at home as long as possible. And then I wanted no epidural. I wanted no pain intervention. And so that was that's how I visualized our birth, laboring at home as long as possible, and no C-section. I didn't want all these interventions, and I wanted to do it completely naturally. I guess when you've gone through infertility and you've had surgery after surgery and you've gone through all the medications and the hormonal changes and just all of that medical junk kind of being done to you all the time, I wanted to do this one thing on my own. I wanted my body to do the one thing that I felt like it's supposed to do. It should know how to do this. And then, of course, my body at 22 weeks was like, yeah, I know how to do this, just a little too early. So, but, then it was 39 weeks came along and my doctor's telling me, well, because of your age, we need to induce early. And I thought, well, that's not what I want. And so, I pushed it off and she was not very happy with me. And
how did you make that decision to push it off? Was it like, were you, with your analytical husband who's, probably hearing what the doctor's saying as well? How did you guys make that decision and make it confidently?
Yeah, that was really hard, honestly. And so at this point, I have my OB who's going to hopefully deliver at the hospital. I had my perinatal specialist who had done the cerclage, and I was seeing both of them every week amidst COVID-19, which has been just an additional wrinkle
added.
And of course, my husband being the analytical person, he had me quarantined here at home, basically end of February.
Wow.
He basically said, you're not going to work anymore. And I was like, oh, fine. Everything's great. This is nobody's dying. Nobody, there's nothing wrong. And of course, it's very serious. So I'm very grateful to his analytical mind, because he definitely safeguards us as a family. But, basically we had my OB, the perinatal specialist, and I was seeing the midwife every so often just for, one, she just offered amazing emotional support to me, which was great because nobody else was giving that to me.
Wow.
My OB I was seeing for 5 minutes every week, and my perinatal I was seeing for maybe 10 or 15. But what I think gave us the confidence was that the perinatal specialist had actually delivered all of his children at home with the midwife that we were seeing. And he was the one who basically said, I he said, I'm comfortable with you delivering no later than 41 weeks and 6 days. And so, you know, even though my OB said she wanted me delivering by 30, basically 39 and 7 or 40 weeks. He basically said, you know, you can go a little bit longer. And that was, I think, helpful for my husband to hear. And then we did try to kind of help induce naturally through the midwife's kind of special little tactics, I guess you could call them, which I don't know if they helped or not. They certainly didn't help in the 48 hours that she thought they would work. But we basically, we were supposed to go in on a Tuesday for the induction, and I ended up pushing until Thursday. And then that morning I woke up at 3 a.m., 3:30 maybe, and I was like, gosh, my stomach really feels weird. And something's just this. I've been feeling Braxton Hicks, you know, and they were manageable. But this feels really strange. And I kind of went into some pre-labor between 3:30 and about 7 a.m. and then everything just stopped. And I thought, that's weird. Well, I guess it's good that we're going in for induction tonight. We were supposed to get in there at 8 o'clock at night. And then by about 2 o'clock, my contractions started again, and we started tracking them. And, you know, I went into labor. I don't know how, but I did it. My body was like, okay, what's the last? I guess it's very much me. I'm kind of a procrastinator. It's like, okay, well, what's the deadline? How long is it going to take to do something? And okay, I'll wait 15 minutes before something is due to do it. Kind of like writing that.
So your body was following suit.
Yeah. It was like college all over again, writing your term paper the night before it's due. That's what my body was trying to do with labor. It knew that it had a deadline of 8 o'clock. And and then
So were you able to labor at home then?
Yeah, I was having contractions kind of throughout the day, but then basically around 2 o'clock, I think, until 7 o'clock. I would say around 5 o'clock is when the contractions really started to kick up, where like I had to really practice my breathing, and I didn't have like a big medicine ball to sit on or a birthing ball, but I had to kind of find a way to sit in a similar way to kind of, engage, kind of get my pelvis seated properly and just really breathe through things. And what's really funny is that we've been playing a board game a couple nights a week with friends over Zoom, and we were playing a board game up until 7:15 that night.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
And I was just like laboring off the camera by myself while my husband and the rest of the team were kind of playing a board game, and I'd chime in every so often. But it just didn't seem like it was that big a deal. But then apparently I'd already been in active labor for about an hour by the time we got to the hospital, and I just didn't really know it. So
wow.
Yeah.
So you got to the hospital and you were about like 7 centimeters then?
I was 5.5 centimeters.
5.5. Okay.
Yeah. But and then we started pushing at, I think, 11:30. So I got to the hospital when they checked me. It was 8:30 at night.
Wow.
And 11:30 is when we started
3
pushing.
hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness.
It was crazy.
That was fast.
It was really fast. And I stayed at 9.5 centimeters for a long time, unfortunately. But finally we were able to get that last little half centimeter out of the way. And then he was here. So
did you end up getting that natural birth that you had envisioned, or did you decide to get an epidural along the way, or what kind of happened in between?
Yeah. So, I asked, what's the drop dead deadline for an epidural? Because, I wanted to stay open to it. And they said, well, when you can no longer sit still to have an epidural put in your back. And I thought, oh gosh, I feel like I'm way beyond that. Like I was already at home, like at 5 o'clock when I was having contractions, I was in the space where I need to move through my contractions. I can't just sit still. I needed to either stand or be on the ball. I was able to be on the ball at the hospital for about 45 minutes before they wanted me in bed. So that was really great. But at the same time, I wish I could have just stayed on the ball. And I wish I could have just been walking through my contractions, because being in bed was the worst. So, basically when I got to the hospital, it was pretty much too late to have an epidural. And I knew that in my mind. And then I did say, I would like to try the nitrous oxide, because I'd been reading that while it doesn't really eliminate your pain, it actually kind of helps you not really care about it. I guess maybe you're high. I don't know. But they basically said because of COVID-19 that they weren't allowing anybody to use the nitrous oxide because of the way you breathe it out, I guess. It was too much of a danger. So no intervention, no pain meds. It was, I guess, what I wanted. I mean,
what did you do besides movement? Was there anything that you did that like really helped you manage those sensations when the contractions came on?
Yeah, so I think there were a couple things, because once again, they would not let me stand or walk around the room, because when you're tied to the contraction machine, you're tied to all these monitors. I had an IV for electrolytes. They wanted me tethered to something all the time. So I wish I didn't have to be, but I knew that having a hospital birth, I'd have to give up on some things. And so I, of course I complied. Oh, and by the way, I had to wear a mask the entire time. It was miserable. That was the worst. I mean, wearing the mask and trying to breathe through the mask and talk and hear, and just not feel like I was suffocating was worse than the contractions, honestly. So, and everybody had to wear masks, and that's fine, I guess, but I didn't know that was going to be the case. So I think because they wouldn't let me walk around, and then they took me off the ball pretty quickly, I had to be in bed the majority of the time, and they had me moving positions because of baby's heart rate. And, it was really great because the nurses knew that I wanted to have a natural birth, and I think they did everything they possibly could to help me do that. And they helped me with positioning so that, baby's heart rate would come back up. They gave me oxygen quite often. I think and those things were just really helpful, that I think just prevented potentially escalating to a C-section. Because the baby's heart rate did drop a lot during the 6 hours from the time we got to the hospital to the time we actually delivered him was 6 hours, or maybe 5.5. So, but I think while I was in bed all that time, practicing my breathing was huge. I mean, and then just constantly telling myself, having the mantra. And I thought a lot about what my mantras would be. I didn't get to post anything, up in the room, and I didn't make like a space for myself, with dim lights or a candle or anything like that. We didn't have that. There was no time to do anything like that. But my mantra was, it's 90 seconds. I can do anything for 90 seconds. And my contractions were lasting anywhere from 45 seconds to 90 seconds at the max. And I just had to keep telling myself I can do anything for 90 seconds. And it's true. And then someone at one point said, it's just one day of your life. Giving birth is one day of your life. You can endure anything for a day. And so that was kind of what I had to continually tell myself. And then just really focusing on that breathing, and just being able to recognize when a contraction was starting, so that I could take in my really big, deep breath, and then let it out through the peak of that, and then just kind of come back to like a more neutral state on the other side of a contraction was really huge. And, I think I learned that through, your videos. So that was really helpful. I think I kept telling myself, oh, this is like when in yoga, when you're doing yoga breathing, or certain kinds of yoga breathing, it's like, okay, just breathe through the pain, and so that was really, I think that's the only thing that got me through it was the breathing and the mantras.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that those are such like easy things to access. You know, you didn't have to put lights up in your room. You didn't have to play music even, or, you know, have whatever that environment that you had to, you know, it was just all inside of yourself. It was just breathing. It was mantras. It was, and then having people encourage you with their words as well. And I think that it's nice to know that, you know, it doesn't have to be all these external things. It can really be you just finding that calm, like energy inside yourself, and really anchoring onto that and knowing, yes, like it is just 90 seconds. If I can get through 90 seconds, then I get a rest, you know, and I'm not going to go in the future. I'm just going to be right now, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's so huge.
My husband was really helpful with that too. You know, cause there were times where my breathing would get a little kind of out of control, and my husband would just kind of be like, okay, come on, remember your breathing, take a deep breath. And he even told me after the fact that a couple times I didn't have huge breaks between my contractions. You don't have very long, but he said that there were a couple times where I actually fell asleep for like 10 seconds. And I was like, I did? How's that possible?
Yeah.
You're just
I know that
so
is
tired.
crazy. Yeah, no, it's true. And that's common. That's not even like, what? That's crazy that you did that, you know, but it's like women can do that. It's like extraordinary measures make you have to take extraordinary measures to get rest. And so, you know, they do that, and it's crazy to see what women can do. It really is. It's so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really surprised by myself that I was able to do it, because I don't know. I just don't think of myself as that strong or that capable a lot of times. But you know, I did it, I guess. I don't really remember a whole lot of it. So
yeah.
But my husband was super helpful too. You know, he was, you know, he didn't, you know, come in and do like lots of, you know, massaging, or, you know, he didn't do anything like over the top crazy and special. You know, he was just there with me and, you know, held my hand the entire time, and, you know, just, you know, he just loved on me in the way that he does. And so that was also hugely helpful. Just knowing that I wasn't there by myself. I know it was really stressful for him too, because he can't handle seeing the people he loves in pain. And you are in pain. And I did not go quietly into labor. I was, I will admit, I did not suffer quietly. I was kind of a loud pusher. So, and, you know, so that was really hard on him, but he, you know, he endured it, and we had our laughs. And there was one point where they had me in a really weird position, and, you know, you're completely naked, and you know, and you're completely pregnant, you know, and I turned to my husband. I said, babe, am I sexy? And he's like, you know it. And it's like,
of course.
And we all know that it was the least sexy thing possible in that moment. But, you know, there were like 3 other nurses in the room with us at that point. We were all just laughing. And then a contraction came and nobody was laughing. But
but, exactly. You know, I feel like all of labor is those twists and turns. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, I'm not going to say it was a party and that we should do this every Friday night or anything, but it was, you know, it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think seeing too what you can experience, like the challenges that you can overcome, you know, and you come out of it and you're like, wow, I was really strong in doing that, you know. And so even, you know, your husband seeing you go through probably the most intense experience of your life, you know, is able to see, wow, like you are so strong that you were able to get through that, and that here you are on the other end, like just so much, like just that transformation that you have is huge. Going from, you know, just becoming a mother, and that's so special for partners to be able to see their, you know, mamas go through that. So
yeah, I mean, I think it was a bonding experience for us, and I think we, you know, learned more about each other in that time. But I mean, I won't sugarcoat it. You know, there were times in the middle of the labor where I was like, I would like this to end. I'm never doing this again. We're not having more children. I'm not doing this. And then, you know, and then that baby is out of you, and it's amazing how quickly all the pain stops.
Yeah.
Or at least for me, it did.
Yeah.
And I had some, obviously, they do some things to you afterwards that are not comfortable, that, like I had some minor tearing and whatnot, but, and then postpartum is just kind of its own little roller coaster. But,
yeah.
Once that baby's out of you, you're kind of like, oh gosh, this is such a relief. And, and then all of a sudden that labor amnesia kicks in. And now I'm sitting here thinking, okay, like, we have more embryos stored and, frozen. Like, when are we doing the next, what's the right timing if we want to have another baby? So,
wow.
Yeah. So, and especially knowing that your second time mamas have labor a little shorter, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That'll be nice.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. Well, going through that really transformative experience, how do you view yourself differently having gone through labor and birth than you saw yourself before experiencing that?
Oh, I guess, I struggle with self-pride, I think, in general, but I think, like, okay, I guess I'm stronger than I thought I was. To be perfectly honest, I've already mentioned I'm a procrastinator. I'm kind of a quitter on a lot of things. Like, when things get hard, sometimes I'd rather quit than continue, but with labor, you don't get that option. And so I think making it through and just having that resolve and knowing that this is something I have to see through to the end. It just really, I think, like, if I can do that, I can do that in a lot of other areas of my life. And it's kind of a silly lesson to be learning at this age, but I think, I kind of feel, everyone's birth story is their own birth story, and there's no judgment. If people have been induced and have had epidurals, and that's fine, and maybe I would have had a better experience. I don't know. Maybe my husband would have had a better experience, because he wouldn't have been so stressed out seeing me in pain, and we could have just relaxed more. I don't know, but there's no condemnation or judgment on how anybody's birth story or labor story goes. But I do kind of just feel like, I don't know, like, just really tough, kind of like I did this, where can I buy the t-shirt,
Exactly.
A couple of years ago, we did one of those Tough Mudder obstacle courses, and, I did the whole thing, and that was so hard, and I felt beat up and bruised, and it took me like a week to recover. But I was really proud of myself for doing that. And of course, I had my husband there to support me through it and push me along. But like even bigger than that, it just felt, like I did it. I thought I could, and it's something that I'd wanted for so long. And at an age where, like, I'm not always, my body isn't exactly, I'm not 22 anymore, which is when I thought I'd be starting my family. My body is starting to degrade in lots of different ways, just because that's what happens as you get older. And yet I did it. And so I guess I feel that self-pride a little bit that I was able to do this the way I wanted to.
And I think after wanting that, like you said, for so long, and then midway through your pregnancy, feeling like that might not happen for you, and then again at 39 weeks, maybe it's not going to happen. And then for it to finally happen and then have like your victory right in your arms is really special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And well, thank you.
Yeah, it's been great so far. So, but it was just one day, and now we've got this little guy for the rest of our lives. And
one day that you get to remember forever.
Exactly. And I just know that, there's going to be harder days ahead of us, trying to raise a child. And right now we're in the sleepless phase and learning to breastfeed and all those things. And
it's all a journey.
It's all a journey. It's all challenging, and it's all going to be rewarding as well. So,
Yeah. Totally. Well, if there's, moms listening to this who are heading into their birth experience or, pregnant and coming across challenges, what's some advice or encouragement that you would like to leave with them?
Oh, wow. I guess, just know that this is what your body is supposed to do. Your body really does know how to do it. Be an advocate for yourself. That was something I really, I'm generally not an advocate for myself. I'm very conflict avoidant. And so even with my OB, I felt like I was in conflict with her all the time because of how she wanted to induce, and she was telling me I was high risk for C-section and all these things. And just telling her, no, I really want to be able to stand my ground and just be informed about, what does lead to, medical interventions, and then be an advocate for yourself, but also really just stay flexible. Because that was something that my husband helped me with more so than I did on my own, was that for myself, know when that point of no return is on the epidural, so that if I want it or need it, I'm not asking for it 10 minutes after it's too late. And so even though it was too late by the time we even got to the hospital, it was just knowing those things up front and just being an advocate for yourself, knowing those things, and then just staying flexible. And I think we just kind of went in kind of trying to keep everything as low key as possible and not trying to be like super high maintenance about, we didn't go in with really a birth plan. Maybe I would have done that a little differently, but my birth plan going in was no intervention if possible and no epidural if possible. And so I think just stay flexible, stay humble, and be really nice to your nurses. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
They were amazing.
Yes, I know. Those nurses are amazing.
Yeah.
So definitely they deserve all the love in the world.
Yeah. And I kept apologizing, and they were like laughing at me, like, "Don't apologize. You're the one who's in pain." I was like, "Yeah, but you're the one who's working, and I'm in your workspace, making your life, stressful and chaotic." And
well, as a birth worker, I can say, and I think I speak for all birth workers, including nurses, that we love being able to have you in that space and do whatever we can to make any mama feel as comfortable as she can. So I'm sure your nurses felt the same way.
And they definitely did. They were doing everything they could. And I had such great nurses. So it was a great experience. But yeah, just I don't know. Everyone's experience is going to be so different, and everyone probably needs to hear a little bit of different advice. But just the whole, be your advocate, or at least have somebody with you who can be your advocate, and then just be flexible and go with the flow. And when the nurses tell you roll over, roll over. Say baby's heart rate is dropping, do this, and just do it. Remember that you're there as a team, and stay humble about everything too. There's a lot of humility to be learned through labor.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And even in that humbling experience, we come out and say, wow, that was amazing. And somehow I feel stronger, even being like coming to that really humble place.
Absolutely. 100%. For sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Eloise, for sharing your story with us.
No problem.
Your journey. I know it's a long one, and everyone has their own journey, and whether that's very few bumps in the road or feels like you're on a constant uphill battle. I know that as moms, we can come alongside each other and support each other, and as women, we can do that. And so thank you for sharing your story, because I know that is going to be such an encouragement for women and moms who either have children now or who are pregnant with their first, wherever they are in that journey. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your life with us.
Yeah, no problem. And, thank you to, I found your YouTube channel early on and was, basically watched, I think, everything. So, I feel like, your videos carried me through and were a great resource on some big topics and little topics all along the way. So, really helpful. And I really appreciate all that you're doing as well for all us mamas out here.
Well, thank you. I love it. Well, Eloise, enjoy this newborn stage. It is tiring, it is challenging, but it's wonderful. And I know that you are loving the time that you get to spend with your little guy.
Absolutely. I definitely am.
Yeah, it's so special. It goes by too quick.
It does, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's already growing, and I can tell, and he's already starting to outgrow some of his little outfits, and I'm like, oh no!
It's like, no, stay small. Totally, I get it. Well, enjoy him. Go snuggle him, and thank you again for sharing your story, and have a good rest of the day, Eloise.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Mama, I hope you are feeling so encouraged that despite the ups and downs of trying to conceive maybe and being pregnant, there is so much joy and reward mixed in. I hope you have learned the value of creating a birth team that you trust, and then trusting in your wisdom and ability to advocate for yourself with the knowledge that you are built to birth. Again, if you want more information on how to be informed on how to build your birth team and know how to trust your body and baby in pregnancy and birth, go to builttobirth.com and subscribe to the email so that you know when that Built to Birth course is released. And thanks for subscribing, rating, and writing a review of the Built to Birth podcast. And thanks for being with me in this one, mamas, and I will see you in the next one.